Titanfall 2 is the sequel to the groundbreaking 2014 game Titanfall by Respawn Entertainment. With its addition to the franchise came many new guns, abilities, and microtransactions, while removing 80% of Titan features and objectively making them all feel kind of really terrible to use. Or maybe I only think that out of nostalgia for a game I can no longer play. Regardless, unlike its predecessor, Titanfall 2 also has an offline campaign mode. This is relevant because today I will be asking you, can you beat Titanfall 2 with only melee attacks? The question is pretty simple, but I'll reiterate that, both as a pilot in Titan, I'll only be allowed to use melee attacks unless absolutely necessary to progress. So with that in mind, I start my life like all women do, in windowed mode by default for some reason, also in a VR pod where I was introduced to some of the game's core mechanics, such as walking, running, and crouching. This guy, Captain Lastimosa, also gave me a few guns in preparation for running the gauntlet, but they were pretty scary so I didn't end up using them. This is the point at which I swore off using guns in this war altogether. The captain also taught me, someone who can't pilot a Titan, how to call in my Titan. That'll be handy. While my non-existent Titan dropped out of the virtual sky, the ship I was on, the USS James McAllen, was being shot down. As a result, I was handed a future gun, and orbital drop shocked out of the ship. My drop pod spiked me with drugs without asking, making me feel a little woozy, then it launched the door right off. I crawled out, jumping feet first into combat with the IMC's robot army. As I was punching, kicking, and punching my way through the specters, a Titan dropped out of the sky, almost crushing me. Then, it almost crushed me again before being stopped by Captain Lastimosa. Lastimosa got absolutely rocked by these two Titans, then Kuben Blisk from the hit game Apex Legends popped out of a Titan, scolding one of his other mercenaries for playing with the dead bodies of my friends. When the Apex predators were gone, I passed out and woke up in Jurassic Park. A dinosaur. No! 2 dinosaurs tried eating me, but I was saved by Captain Lastimosa. The captain fell out of his Titan and handed over control of him, and his helmet, to me, someone who has not been trained to use either, before dying in my arms. This would probably be sad if I didn't meet him 5 minutes ago, and if he wasn't actively putting me in danger by giving me weapons I have not been trained to use. After burying the captain under a bunch of rocks, I set off to find a new battery for BT, beating the holy hell out of a few dinosaurs along the way. I got overconfident when a second pack of dinosaurs came up and ate me to death. Next time, I just went invisible, ran past them, and surfed the damage when they bit me in the ass to get away. These two IMC grunts were having a lover's quarrel, so I used that distraction to kick them both off a cliff, only to be ambushed by the rest of their squad. I tactically utilized my cloak and my high combat training to jump to my death because I forgot that double jumping is disabled right now. Next time, I used the zip line to get across the river as intended. I ran past all these additional enemies as they fought amongst themselves, but these two dinosaurs were really committed to the idea of throwing me off a cliff. Thankfully, my double jump reactivated at the perfect time to be able to avoid dying to the fall or their sharp teeth, so I ran along the walls to get the replacement battery for BT. Instinctively, I tried punching it to death, but then I remembered, we're not cavemen, we have technology. I returned to BT, where 3 grunts were talking about selling him. Thankfully, a quick knuckle sandwich to each of their skulls made them change their minds. BT woke up, introduced himself, and informed me that another battery needed my help. He marked it on my map, so I set off to grab it for him. When approaching a second piece of the wreckage of the McAllen, another IMC search party got in my way. I hacked and smacked most of them, then ran past their sentry gun since I'm sure it would have ripped me to shreds. I returned to BT with the final battery, then embarked my new Titan and got ready to fight some more IMC robots. When they arrived, BT hadn't fully prepared his combat systems, so I had to use his vortex shield to launch the gunfire back at the enemies. But technically, hear me out here. Technically, this doesn't fail the challenge. I'm not using guns to kill the enemies. They happen to be shooting themselves, so it's totally okay. God damn it. I used the missiles as instructed to kill the robots shooting at me. When BT finally powers up enough to stand up, I punch the remaining ones. Above me, BT and I hear an IMC Titan falling from the sky. When he drops in, I use the age-old tactic of big metal fisticuffs to turn him into scrap metal. There will be plenty of that in our near future. So, for clarification going forward, I'm going to continue using the Vortex Shield with a clear state of mind for a while, even if the projectiles I catch kill an enemy, but I'm still going to avoid using actual weapons. The run already failed by me using BT's missiles, but that's fine. I'm still continuing. It's fine. It's not like this is going to be the last time I fail or bend the rules. In addition, I'm going to count me stepping on enemies while in my Titan as melee kills. I mean, it qualifies, right? Anyway, after a brief loading screen, BT and I are put into another combat situation. This time with multiple IMC Titans, who I managed to beat the headlight fluid out of despite being severely outmatched. I have to get out to collect a few more batteries to avoid BT becoming B-seized. BT and I enter the sewers, where we had to split up after I opened the floodgate to allow him to progress inside. I found a group of militia grunts fending off IMC robots. They greeted me as pilot, and I was too nervous to admit that I wasn't really a pilot. I did my best to help them fend off the stalker hordes, but we kept getting overwhelmed, so I decided to just keep moving. BT and I found each other, but there was still the problem of a giant wall of sludge preventing us from being in the same room. BT marked the sludge controls on my HUD. When I used the sludge controller to stop the flow of sludge, the IMC began dropping explosive ticks from the sky. Hoping that this was a timed objective rather than one where I had to kill all the ticks, I just started running around the room until the grunts came dropping in as well. Best I could tell, getting close to the ticks while they were close to the grunts to get them to explode also killed the grunts, which is a convenient tool to accompany the usual hack-smacking and whatnot. Eventually, the sludge was out of the way, allowing BT to assist me in mopping up the remaining enemies, then giving us the chance to regroup and re-embark. We continued through the facility until we encountered the first boss of the game, Kane. Kane uses a Scorch class Titan. Like I learned when I was but a wee lass, fire really fucking hurts. This is the point at which I also add another clause to the Santa Clauses by allowing myself to use rodeo attacks, both stealing the batteries and lobbing grenades into the battery slots. If it weren't for this, the challenge would have ended right here, and technically it already did. Whatever. It's fine. I had to do a lot of jumping between my Titan and Kane's by stealing his infinitely regenerating batteries, dropping presents back into their slots, and hopping back into BT to regenerate his health. When I started this run, I also planned on having a death counter on screen to show you how much of a skill issue I had throughout it. I changed my mind along the way, but for reference, during this fight alone I died about 10 times, and it would have been tenfold or so more if I hadn't added the rodeo clause to allow me to rodeo Kane's Titan. Like I said before, he uses Scorch Titan. Scorch Titans have this super fun ability where they can hold up a fire shield that blocks all damage from the front while very rapidly draining your health if you're close, which, as the rules of melee combat tend to imply, you're gonna be. At this point, the challenge is more of a without guns than with only melee attacks, but that wasn't really the intention going in, so I'm keeping the name. It's not like it matters anyway. With Kane dead, BT suggested that I steal his helmet in order to have an in with the Apex Predator's communications, which would prove useful, probably. BT and I carried on past Kane's little sludge factory, instead of finding ourselves in a newer area with no sludge and new enemies to put holes in, with my fist, that is. One of them remarked about how I was clearly very well trained. Does he know? He doesn't know. Oh, also some bastard kidnapped BT before my very eyes. I had to find him. I had to find him. Well, the hardest part of this level wasn't actually the combat. It was the fact that I kept getting lost or killed by heavy machinery that wasn't designed to do that. The IMC kept throwing themselves at me, so I kept throwing my fist in their face. Imagine that, training for what I assume to be... I mean, soldiers get trained for a few weeks at least, right? I mean, I don't know, I don't know. Training however long they train, then you get killed by some nobody that just ran up to you and punched you. I mean, that's tragic, isn't it? Anywho, this ash robot lady trapped me in her murder dome, where she put me up against the best and brightest the IMC had to offer, as well as the IMC. She seemed very impressed by me punching this big robot to death. I was also impressed. I didn't expect it to work so well. I also punched the hell out of this tick and it exploded in my face, which hurt real bad. I escaped to the Murder Dome and carried on further into the Murder Dome, where I faced the murder bot, Ash. And I'll be honest, this boss fight was unimaginably pathetic in comparison to Kain. I had to jump onto Ash's Titan a grand total of 4 times before she died for the 2nd time in her life. Someday, she'll die a 3rd time. Then, she'll be trapped in hell itself with no escape. I then dropped into the sewers without BT. I was in a destroyed office What? I was placed in a destroyed office building where time got all weebly and warbly. BT made me a zipline to get into another part of the building to recover the equipment of Captain Anderson in order to... I don't know. They kind of lost me here. I don't really like this tiny, blimey part of the game. Whatever. I take Anderson's Constellation Watch to allow me to travel between the 2 time periods or universes or whatever. One universe where the facility is destroyed and overrun by dinosaurs, and one where the facility isn't destroyed and is overrun by the IMC. Hey, remember back when Starfield won Most Innovative Game of 2023? Not bringing it up for any specific reason or anything, just asking. Anyway, I used the funny watch thing to travel between timelines in order to navigate the facility in the past and present in order to avoid obstacles, dinosaurs, and grunts as I swap. While I progress, I learn Anderson's mission, as he was here to research the IMC's big weapon or whatever. I don't honestly know what's going on here. This time travel gimmick lasts 1 single mission. I don't know why they included it, to be honest. Fundamentally and mechanically, it's super cool, super awesome. It's awesome as a gameplay feature, and just thinking about how they got this to function makes my brain all warm and fuzzy. I mean, it's a cool idea. I just don't know why they would include it in this game. Does that make sense? It just doesn't feel like it fits. It feels like they smacked together an idea from an entirely different game in the middle of this one. Or maybe I'm wrong and stupid and dumb and have bad opinions and should feel bad and should shut up. Who cares? Either way, I fight a bunch of Titans between time and space, utilizing my thievery abilities to steal their batteries and heal BT in the future. When the Titans were all good and dead, I returned to the past. More Titans dropping from the sky made the IMC's weapon unstable, and froze time for me, somehow. I got up close to the center of their arc thing and scanned this funny blue orb. With the data on the funny orb secure, BT and I returned to the future so we can report this weapon to the militia, as the IMC plan on using it to destroy the militia's home planet and kill, according to BT, 40 million people. On the ground in this new area on my way to contact them, I found a new Titan class, the Ronin. Ronin is widely known for its giant sword. This is perfect. BT and I waded through toxic gas to get to a bunch of militia grunts holding out against a wave of stalkers, which I quickly diced with my new sword. Except for this one. I had to swap to Brute to fly to it and punch it. The grunts showed me a destroyed arc tool. They needed me to get a new one. They were also kind enough to let BT sniff it too. I asked them to watch him while I looked for a new tool. I also informed them that it was almost snack time and gave them some of his favorite coolant brand. His chassis gets upset if you give him a different one. Yuri Lowenthal wished me luck on my mission. Thanks, Yuri. When I got to the bottom of the stairs, I had to jump between some electrical wires that would really hurt if I touched them. Don't, ask how I know. I utilized the power of big fans to navigate the facility until I found an arc tool. I stole it right from the hands of this Marvin, and felt really bad because it made him really sad. I utilized the arc tool to manipulate the power of big fans to get back to the grunts with their new tool. Deacon here was impressed by my work. BT and I still had the problem of acquiring a battery to fix the communications link. To solve that problem, BT picked me up like a cat and tossed me like a football. I'd assume. I've never watched or played football before. I'm weak and pathetic. 200 of my bones would snap if someone breathed on me the wrong way. If I got tackled, I'd be turned into dust. Dust! Blisk and his next top guy, this German dude named Richter, were very unhappy that I was playing with their radio tower. To stop me, they sent more of their IMC goons and grunts after me. And now, I'll introduce you to Clauses 2 and 3 of the Santa Claus. Clause 2 is one I decided upon a while ago, and it's pretty simple. By running up to a Spectre and holding the Interact key, you can hack the Spectre to make it fight for you. Technically, you use a melee weapon, the Data Knife, to hack the Spectres if you do this. However, I decided that this would be against the rules as Clause 2. It just felt wrong to me. With that said, here's Clause 3. During this part of the mission, you can use the art tool. I just hit my desk. Can you even hear that? I'm leaving this in. To activate several robots around the area. I decided that this would be allowed under Clause 3. While it kind of doesn't make sense to allow me to use these but not Spectres, who cares? I failed to run forever ago. None of this even matters anymore. Anyway, I played with cranes and stuff until I nabbed the battery. On my way back to BT, I failed the easiest platforming segment the game could possibly have thrown my way. Then I nearly failed it again. Have I ever mentioned how bad I am at video games? It's almost impressive how bad I am for someone who spent 16 years of my life playing video games far more than anyone should. I'm barely even older than 16. You know, statistically, I guess. It's been a few years. God. That's crazy. When I returned to BC, he was neck deep in IMC, who were promptly cut to death with our sword. Those who thought they could escape by being higher than BT could reach were quickly thwarted by a kick to the face from me. Now that the IMC were all dead, BT tossed me up this platform to put the new battery in, reactivating the communications. That really pissed Blisk off. It was at this moment that Blisk realized I've been listening in on him. Lucky for me, he didn't think that maybe it would be a good idea to swap to a different channel in the future. Blisk and Richter toss a few Titans my way. I have to play around the toxic gas on the ground to jump onto them and steal their BT snacks. By the time they were dead, Richter himself had Titan fallen onto the Titan ground in his Titan. Once again, I had to maneuver very carefully around the gas to steal his battery, then jump back into BT. I used BT's sword core to slice and dice the holy hell out of Richter. Once again, this boss fight was absolutely pathetic in comparison to Kane. Hopefully, nobody in the future is going to be, like, really difficult and make me fail the challenge for real this time. After I killed Richter to death, the militia re-established communications with the fleet, specifically Sarah Briggs. Sarah met us on the ground, where I informed her about the IMC's death gun that they wanted to use to blast to the planets. Sarah and BT talked about how Captain Lastimosa was killed. Sarah was confused as to why he would hand BT over to me instead of someone that was, you know, trained to use a Titan. She planned on handing BT over to a qualified pilot, but BT objected and vouched for me. Sarah was content on leaving BT under my possession. Just like in real life, rather than saying anything to another human being, showing me any sort of praise, I just gave her a thumbs up. I then also gave a thumbs up to a Marvin, who gave me one back as well as a salute. These guys are so cute. Sarah's Titan gave me another one as we prepared for Titanfall. When we Titanfalled in, we were met with a big wall covered in sentry guns that would rip a Titan to shreds. Don't, ask me how I know how. Thankfully, all the other Titans were able to deal with the turrets without me by using their missiles. After the wall and turrets were blasted, a flood of IMC Titans came out of the other side. As per usual, I went with the tactic of smacking them a few times, jumping out of BT, stealing their batteries, and hopping back in. It's really quite effective. Thank God for Clause 1. Sarah and I fought our way through the IMC facility to get to the ship carrying the big weapon. After watching me do the patented jump out of Titan mid-combat move a dozen times, she complimented my skills and told me that I earned my pilot's license. I didn't say anything in response. In the next few waves of Titans, I honestly found that this strategy made it more difficult. Most of the time when I jumped out of BT to grab a battery, he'd get swarmed and killed by the enemy Titans. It's almost like I'm not supposed to be doing this sort of thing with so many of them around. Also, something I'd like to note. On occasion, when jumping back into BT, he'll automatically use one of the Titan abilities, even when I don't press to use it. I assume that what happens is he was just about to use it when I jumped in, and the game still recognizes the action as being done. So with this clip on screen, and any others similar to it, isn't me actually using the ability, it's just because I jumped into him at the perfect time for him to do it automatically, so I'm not counting it. Again, not that this matters at this point. Whatever. Anyway, the Titan combat took long enough that the IMC got away with the battery for their space laser, including Sloan here. Sarah, the Marauders, and I take a ship to follow them. We chase after them in hot pursuit. The surrounding Marauders, 6-4, and Angel City elites, thankfully, take care of most of the IMC without me doing much. That's when I catch my first glimpse of someone that'll soon be a problem. With the big guns on the enemy ship actively shooting down our friends, BT throws me to one of the 6-4 ships so they can carry me to the big guns. I use the age-old method of punching everyone between me and the guns, then punching the grunts operating them, securing the location for the rest of the 6-4 to climb aboard and assist me. We jump from ship to ship to sneak up on these grunts, and go all the way upstairs to the control room. The 6-4 use shaped charges on the bulletproof glass so we can shoot at the grunts from the other side. Of course, I don't do that, instead leaping through and punching 2 of them while they shoot the rest. I use my data knife to take control of the ship, then Barker drops BT onto the ship with us. BT punches through the glass while Droz stands concerningly close to it. I embark into BT, then that problem from before shows his face again. Viper. Viper is renowned by players for having a really hot really hard boss fight. That's what I meant. Yep, Viper uses a North Star class Titan, meaning the skies belong to him, and there's very little I can do about it. Dealing with his 2 Scorch lackeys is easy enough, but it's Viper himself who poses a problem for me here. A single use of Sword Core drains him to about 30% of his health, but by the time he hits that stage, he's locked into using his Titan's jetpack. Obviously, this is a bit of a problem, since it means I can't hit him with melee attacks from way down here. After a few attempts, some of which I even tried using North Star to beat him in his domain, I just called it quits, swapped the tone, and shot him down. So, if it wasn't official enough with me using those missiles earlier and me bending the rules by using vortex shields and rodeoing, no. No. I couldn't beat the game with only melee. Even if I wanted to rebrand this challenge into without using guns, I still failed at that. Whatever, it's fine. With Viper grounded, BT was prepared to toss me further down through the air. As he prepared, Viper came back and attacked, ripping BT's arm off. However, BT managed to get his Titan to open up, allowing me to shoot him with my double take. Maybe I could have run up and punched him, maybe not. Does it matter anymore? Does anyone still care? BT and I crawled down into the ship to get to the Ark as it went down. The grunts all ran in horror from me and BT. He punched a hole into the weird crystal thing, allowing me to grab the Ark and secure it. However, with the ship going down, BT refused to leave it, instead preventing me from dying. BT and I are captured by Blisk and his guys, who are trying to get BT to open up about his feelings and give them the Ark. Blisk threatens to shoot me in the head if he doesn't open up. BT opens up, but uses this as a distraction so he can attack them, turning these poor sops into paste and chunks before my eyes. Blisk gets away, but Sloane, his new right hand, uses her Titan to execute BT. Now she went and fucked up. With his final breath, BT rips out his eye and hands it to me. I open it up, revealing a smart pistol that I'll definitely use, and a data knife that I already have. I take BT's eye with me as I try to escape the burning ship. When I escape, Sarah contacts me, saying that she's prepared a new Titan for me without an eye. I call it down and put BT's eye in it, meaning that BT is gonna live forever. BT and I eat a bunch of Titans to death with our sword. Again. The Marauders provide really great backup by launching missiles through the sky to pick the enemy Titans off better than I could alone. We crawled through this area intended for humans. The humans in here were 1. Very scared of us, 2. Very capable of nearly destroying BT. Oh, that's embarrassing. Better not put in this part of the recording where I accidentally shoot some grunts after Sword Core ends. I can just pretend that never happened. Nobody will be any the wiser. When we finish crawling through the tunnels, we come face to face with Blisk and Sloane, who have finished putting the Ark in the fold cannon, fulfilling their contract with the IMC. The two turn and see me, then Blisk tells Sloane to kill me and keep whatever salvage is left over as pay. Sloane says she'll kill me for free. Immediately after we start fighting, she says that all she sees when looking at me is a big pile of cash. Then, she suggests that she should have agreed to kill me for free. Sloane here is the hardest boss fight I have had to deal with since Cain, not that that's saying much. Her Ion's laser core very nearly kills me a few times. If it weren't for the handy supply of Titan batteries around the area, it probably would've. Using phase shift to dodge out of the way, leading into Sword Core to drain her health when it's over, is a very effective tactic, it seems. Every so often, she'll phase out of existence and have her minions try to kill me instead, but it never works out. I eventually manage to finish her off. By this point, however, the BFG is fully charged and about to fire at that one planet, killing 40 million people. BT has a different idea. He can rip the gun to pieces. That's what we attempt to do, but BT is heavily damaged by the back blast of the gun attempting to fire, knocking us down. Blisk drops out of the sky on top of BT. He compliments my work, saying that he's not going to kill me, but I don't get to kill him either. He pulls a business card from his pocket, slapping it against BT's screen, inviting me to the Apex Predators, or maybe the Apex Games. Only time will tell. BT and I stand up and load ourselves into this giant railgun. It launches us toward the center of the gun's battery. I'm more than prepared to sacrifice myself to destroy it, but BT rips me out at the last second, tossing me into the air to sacrifice himself instead. This kind of begs the question, why kill BT and bring him back 10 minutes ago if he was just going to die for real anyway? Whatever. The gun explodes. Sarah and Barker tell me they're about to fly in and get me out of here. I have to platform around the pieces of the planet as they fly around in the air. I jump off the edge, and Barker warps in at the exact second to catch me. I start to fall out, but thankfully, Rogue catches me and pulls me back in, and Barker warps back to space. I sat and watched as the planet exploded, and did not beat Titanfall 2 with only melee attacks. That's it then. Ugh. So that's it then. Honestly, I kind of went into this knowing that there was no way Viper was going to go down without me using guns. I still kind of gave it my all for a few attempts, but it was a lost cause. Somehow, despite being the very first boss, Kane was the hardest of them all. Sloan was second, but a pretty distant second, all things considered. Also, I still haven't turned off the framerate counter. Abrupt ending. Or is it? Originally, yes, it was, and this was the end. But then I thought back on it, and I realized that I wasn't fighting Viper the right way. Viper's boss fight works in a way that he only gets locked into flight after he reaches a certain health threshold. After killing his Scorch buddies, I would immediately use Sword Core on him, which drained his health to that threshold, but it immediately locked him into flying. So my theory coming back to it was that if I got his health low enough with regular melee, then use Sword Core, I might be able to do enough damage to kill him before he can take off. It took me a few tries, but I eventually got super lucky. I kept hitting him while he was on the ground, and when he took off to start launching missiles, I accidentally used my Sword Core and was lucky enough to have him fly low enough for me to be able to hit him with every slash of my Sword Core. This drained his health to the point that he would be locked into flying. However, since he was still in the air for his missile barrage when he reached his health threshold, he had to land, which allowed me to put in another few swings while he was taking off again, doing his Titan and knocking him up off the ship. You can see how excited I am in the clip by me shaking my mouse around. When Viper struck back and fought BT, I ran at him and kicked him a few times, killing him. So yes, I did beat Titanfall 2 with only melee attacks, as long as we handwaved that time I used missiles, and me using the Vortex Shield, and me rodeoing Titans, and me accidentally shooting those grunts. But, you know, those don't count. Abrupt ending.